Welcome to What We Watch When We Drink, a Boozedancing Entertainment Network podcast featuring lively discussions about movies, TV shows, and anything else that we're watching while we drink our favorite boozy beverages. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Audible, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can also find us on boozedancing.com, and if you have any questions, comments, show or drink suggestions, email us at boozedancing@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey, we're live.
We are live.
We are live.
Oh.
Hello. It is Whiskey Wednesday. This is the Boozedancing Entertainment Network. We are live. Welcome to What We Watch When We Drink, the live stream, which will be a podcast here before you know it. This is live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Where else? Is that it?
Well, not Twitter.
Not Twitter. X,
not
whatever.
Twitter.
We're Xing that out. We're done.
We're not paying Elon. Not paying
Nope, we're not paying Elon. I believe this is episode 53, I believe.
53.
53. We have a special guest. We'll get to that in a second. We want to remind everyone, you can, if you're watching tonight, you can drop cards, your comments in the chat. We'll be happy to take any questions. And you can definitely send us notes by email or smoke signals, and we'll be happy to comment on those. And don't forget to go to all of our channels for Mike and Angelo's endless reviews at the murder table at boozedancing.com, where they review anything and everything from ketchup to whiskey. I think something like that, right? Okay, we got a big one tonight. We have a really special guest tonight. Who's a friend of mine here on the West Coast. We are lucky to have, Travis, you're going to have to help me on your title. West Coast brand ambassador for Moet Hennessy, Ardbeg, and Glenmorangie. Is that the whole thing?
Yep.
Hey,
nailed it.
I did it.
Yep.
Welcome, Travis.
Thank you so much, and pleasure to be here. It's always great to hang out and talk all things whiskey and shows and movies.
Yes. We talked about doing this a while back, and we never got to it. So I'm glad we were finally getting this together. Gosh, should we start with a whiskey? Like go right into it, and then we can start chatting?
Yeah, let's do that.
We like whiskey? All right.
Conversation and whiskey go hand in hand, right?
I already poured myself one. Okay. So
where do we start, Travis?
Travis was kind enough to send us some whiskey, so he's going to lead us through a Glenmorangie crazy tasting tonight. And Travis, take it away.
Yeah, so we've got 5 whiskeys from Glenmorangie that we're going to taste tonight, and 2 of them are brand new, not even out yet, actually, or they're coming out to market like any moment. So the first up, and I recommend pouring, is the Glenmorangie Triple Cask Reserve. So it's a brand new whiskey. Sorry, the lighting is not great.
I was just going to ask, is this something new?
It is, brand new. It is Glenmorangie Triple Cask Reserve. So it's a non-age statement whiskey that we make. But I have heard from the horse's mouth, from Dr. Bill Lumsden, the whiskey maker himself, that it is quite old. Yeah, it is quite old. So it's not your standard non-age statement. But it is a marriage of 3 unique cask types. Predominantly for Glenmorangie, we use a lot of ex-bourbon casks. So this is definitely going to be using some ex-bourbon casks. And then the second cask we use for this is some ex-bourbon that's been finished for a couple years in virgin American white oak. So basically a standard bourbon barrel that never held any bourbon. And that's going to give the whiskey a little bit more vanilla, a little bit more spice, a little bit more caramel notes. And then the last cask we use is kind of unique to us in the fact that not too many other Scotch whiskey distilleries have been using rye whiskey casks. So this is a portion of the whiskey is fully matured in ex-rye whiskey casks. And if you remember years ago, we did an experiment called Glenmorangie Speos, which was a private edition. That was a Glenmorangie that was fully matured in ex-rye whiskey casks as well. So this is a marriage of those 3 cask types. And it's kind of designed to be quite approachable, a nice intro into the category, but also to appeal to the American whiskey drinking palate. By tying in some of that ex-rye whiskey cask, you get a little bit of that spice, a little bit of the classic American whiskey notes that you're familiar with. And then it's kind of rounded out with that heavy maltiness or that typical Glenmorangie style with the light citrus fruit. But there's kind of an interesting spice note on the nose, which
Yeah, I was going to
hopefully,
say it's got a little more oomph to it.
A little
yep.
bite.
And it's quite surprising for this whiskey. It is bottled at 40%, but when you taste it, it doesn't necessarily taste that way. It's got some weight to it, it's got some depth, and it's got some nice viscous kind of characteristics.
But before we taste, little clink clink for everybody. Cheers to all. Travis, welcome.
Cheers, folks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Lunch. All right.
Salon.
On the nose, it's really delicious. Just on the nose.
Yeah, it's vibrant, it's bright. You get some of that classic rye spice, but you also get the classic Glenmorangie, like stone fruits and citrus.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really well integrated whiskey. And the best part about this whiskey is it's got a pretty approachable price point. It's you're looking somewhere in the $30 range for this.
Oh, that's not bad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And this feels like it'd be something to be really mixable.
It would, yeah. And that was another reason for Dr. Bill choosing to use the rye whiskey casks, because when you make a cocktail, you really want the single or the main spirit to still shine through in your cocktail. So having that big rye spice backbone will allow this whiskey to hold up a little bit better.
It's sweet and it's got a lot of citrus, right?
Mm-hmm. That would be the classic Glenmorangie coming in. And then on the finish, you get some of those herbal, kind of those spice notes. And I dare say like a little bit of vanilla spice.
I was going to say a little peppery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got a nice heat to it.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't expecting at all. I didn't really know.
Yeah,
what
if you
this
didn't
was
say
for.
40, if you didn't say 40 and I didn't look at the bottle, I would have not guessed 40. That's really weird.
I know, it's kind of surprising, huh?
And it's got that like the viscous quality you mentioned too. It doesn't seem like
Yes.
it's, again, only 40, like that's nothing. It seems like it's 45, 46, something like that.
Yeah,
So this-
it doesn't feel thin or taste thin at all, which is a great indicator of a well-made whiskey.
Yeah.
So this is not out yet, or is out.
It may be available in a few select markets, but it should be rolling out across the United States in a couple of weeks.
Oh, look
Should
at that.
see it.
A preview. I like that.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I like to
delicious.
surprise and kind of treat my friends with previews and surprises of things that are coming.
And we like that.
The-
We like
The
that.
Glenmorangie Triple Cast Reserve, our first one of the evening. Before we get to our what we're watching, we should dig into what Travis is all about. So, Travis, talk about your journey into this industry, how you got into spirits, and how you got to LVMH.
Yeah. So I grew up in a really small remote town in Northern California near Yosemite National Park. And I basically
Wow.
realized quickly,
I
yeah,
did not
that
know
I didn't
that.
want to stay there forever. Yeah. So my hometown was about 1,000 people. It's called Coarse Gold. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's south of Oakhurst, another town nobody's ever heard of. But it's about an hour and a half north of Fresno. So, yeah, I grew up there. And while I was younger, I always worked in restaurants. So I found that I really enjoyed cooking and I enjoyed food and ingredients. So a couple years after high school, I decided I was going to move to Orange County to go to culinary school. While I was in culinary school, I was working behind a couple bars, and I had a great bar mentor who would allow me to taste one spirit on the back bar every night when I was closing and cleaning up the bar. And that's kind of when it hit me. When I was in school, I was tasting all these flavors, cooking all these different cuisines, and our chefs would make us taste everything in its raw form. And then I started implementing that into kind of working behind the bar. And I remember some of the first whiskeys I ever tasted were like a Glenmorangie La Santa. And then it was Highland Park 12-year-old. And from there, it was kind of like the light bulb had just gone off. I was taking menu and wine classes. So I started tasting some of these unique flavors in Scotch whiskey that I was also tasting in my wine classes. And from there, it was just a rabbit hole. I couldn't stop reading about it, studying it. And back then, I was about 22 and I was going into bars ordering Scotch whiskey neat when all my other friends were like, "What are you doing? Are you sure?" And I was kind of like the odd one, ordering Scotch. But in the end of the day, it's paid off because I developed a huge passion for it, a huge hobby. As you can see behind me, I have a pretty decent little whiskey collection. Um, so yeah, it was just like this passion pursuit. And one of my early mentors in the ambassador world, his name was Gaston Martinez, or his name is Gaston Martinez, and he said to me early on that you can teach anybody a skill set, but you can't teach them passion. So if you're passionate about something and you truly love it, you'll go far. And I was very passionate about whiskey, and yeah, it's ended up kind of working out. I've worked for a couple different suppliers. I started out with a small import company working for Bunnahabhain, Deanston, and Tobermory. And then from there, I jumped over to Beam Suntory, kind of learned about their whole whiskey portfolio. And then from there, I went to Glenmorangie and Ardbeg, and I've been with them for 9 years now as the Western
Wow.
U.S. brand ambassador. Yeah.
That's
That's
great.
awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah.
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 Really
Thanks.
interesting how you can find that passion and then and kind of make that your future, right? Not a lot of people do that. A lot of people
Yeah,
don't.
can you give
find
me
that
some
passion.
lessons? Can you give me some lessons?
Yeah, really. Yeah.
I need help with that.
Yeah.
I've been very,
Right.
very fortunate to really do what I love for a living. And, I travel a lot, as you know. I've been on the road for the last 2 weeks straight and only been home for about 12 hours. So today was like a first full day home, which was amazing. But, it doesn't feel bad or anything because I am out there talking about brands and talking about whiskey and sharing my passion with everybody.
I
So
think
it is really cool.
and you said, I believe, you also have Hawaii and Alaska is your part of your territory, right?
Yeah, so that's actually where I just came from. I came from about a week and a half ago. I was in Hawaii, and then I went up to Northern California, and I was in Seattle as well. So it's been a busy couple of weeks.
You're
Wow.
strictly West
Crazy.
Coast?
Western U.S., yeah. So I cover
Okay.
from Montana to Alaska, down to Hawaii, and over to Texas.
Okay.
Boy, that's a lot of that's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you ever need hacks or questions about airport travel or where to park or anything like that, I can help you out.
I can't imagine how many miles you fly a year. Do you know the number?
Yeah, I have a rough idea. I'm about 150,000 miles a year.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's a
I'm
lot.
getting pretty close to million miler. I think I'll hit it sometime next year or the
And
year
what
after.
happens? What happens?
You get like a lifetime status. You get this plaque that you get to put up on your wall. They give you like a cool little metal tag for your bags.
Yeah, but you get upgraded to first class. I mean, that's really what you want, right?
Yeah, you get that quite a bit with diamond medallion
Okay,
as well.
there you go. All right, good. That's always worth it.
Very nice.
You're gonna
Awesome.
fly
Great.
comfortably.
Yeah.
That's right. Especially going to Alaska. Gosh.
Yeah, I love it up there. One of my good buddies owns a really great whiskey bar up there called Fiore di Italia, and his whiskey bar is absolutely insane. And he just opened up a retail store called Alligator, and it's amazing as
Great
well.
name.
Because, yeah. Because he was having issues with some of the like local retailers and how he did a proportionate amount of like the business for like some of the higher end stuff. And he would never get any of those special bottles, so he basically created a liquor store because he wanted to be able to get those special bottles.
Yeah.
And he
Smart.
called it Allocated. Yeah, I thought it was
Oh,
brilliant.
That's so funny. That's great. Wow. Okay, that's a great beginning to all this. We have chosen collectively as our what we're watching this week a brand new show on Apple Plus. Is that what it's called? Apple Plus, Apple TV Plus,
Apple TV Plus, something like that.
Apple
One of
TV
those.
Plus. Right, it's a mouthful. Just started last week. Correct. It's a new series starring Vince Vaughn. It is called Bad Monkey, and the first two episodes dropped together. The third
Correct.
episode came out last night, and we've all watched the first two episodes, right, Mike?
Yep.
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
I watched the third too.
I
Yeah,
did too.
quiet.
Actually, I did too.
Quiet.
So,
Spoilers.
yeah. So, Ange, why don't you give us a little rundown on the story?
Well, I'll just give you the quick synopsis that is on the Apple TV Plus site. A detective
go.
turned restaurant inspector in Southern California is pulled into a world of greed and corruption after a tourist finds a severed arm while fishing. And yes, there's a monkey. That's pretty much the whole story.
That's
And
what
this
I
is
think
it's
it's
based
Southern Florida, though, right?
Yeah,
Florida.
because a lot of it's the Keys and Miami and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So this is
based on a book, right? Carl
That's
Hyson.
right. Carl Hyson, who is noted for these kinds of quirky drama fiction stories, like Leonard,
Elmore
Leonard, right? So it's a little crime drama, a little fun, a little escapism, little smarminess, snarkiness. There's a little of everything going on here, and it's Vince Vaughn's kind of re-entry into television. From I think the last TV he did was True Detective?
Yeah.
Right, on HBO, where that was very serious, and this is very, very light and fun. So it's good to see Vince Vaughn again, right? I don't know, Travis. I know the three of us are Vince Vaughn. Mike, you're a Vince Vaughn fan, right?
Well, don't forget he was on Curb. He was on the last two seasons of Curb.
Oh, that's right. He was on Curb. That's right. Yeah, ongoing.
Right, he was a Funkhauser. Was he a Funkhauser?
Let's say he was a Funkhauser. Sure.
Yeah.
So he's got his whole Vince Vaughn milieu. He does his thing, and he's doing his thing for this whole show, right? Thoughts, questions, talk about story. We've got 2 episodes in, so we can't go too crazy on where the story is going to go, but we know a little bit of the premise. Anybody? Jump right
Travis,
in.
lead away.
I'm loving it so far. The first episode, I was kind of like, the narrator is a little bit off for me, and it was kind of like taken away from the story. But as soon as like it all kind of came together and it started clicking, I was like, oh, this is brilliant. How I love like the kind of dry sense of humor that the narrator implements into the story. And also Vince Vaughn is brilliant so far. He's just like this very inquisitive character. And he's always asking these questions, and people kind of get sick of him. So it's kind of like a little bit of a different take on his traditional characters. But it's quite funny so far. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm probably going to watch the 3rd episode after we jump off of our episode here, actually.
I've actually watched the first 2 episodes a couple times. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
I like how the narrator is actually a character.
Yep.
Yes.
So he narrates, and then he shows up, and you're like, "Wait a minute, that's the narrator."
Well,
I know
the
that.
first thing that popped into my head was the Big Lebowski with what's his name doing the cowboy.
Yeah.
And then he shows up at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who that actor is, but he's really good as being the old salty dog fisherman, tourist guide, and then kind of. Everyone knows everybody in that little town of Key West, and sits in. Everyone has a beer at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and everyone it's touristy. It's not touristy. It's South Florida, but it's not South Florida. It's like middle of the Caribbean. It looks really good. It's really hard, I think, to have a show set in the Keys, Southern Florida, and not be like, I want to move there tomorrow. Although the reality is that it, isn't so great with all the humidity and hurricanes and such. But it just looks so great. And Apple has done so well, whoever produced it.
It was all shot on an iPhone, by the way.
I'm sure it was, right? Was it? It probably was for an iPad.
Who knows?
The blue of the sky is like intense. It's endless. It's like, oh my God. It's like this. It is like this blue. It is just so much blue. It's like this Glenmorangie blue, just like piercing you. Yeah.
Yeah.
The story is starting to round out. I think, it's going to be kind of a farce, kind of a mystery farce. And there's a little bit of elements of the Caribbean and people on an island. And there's the real estate developer. Somebody's bad. There's a dead bot, or there's a dead arm. It's a little of this, a little of that, and it's somehow more than likely it's all going to come together. Did anyone read the book, by the way?
No.
Has anyone read any?
I think I've read 1 or 2. I know I read Skinny Dip, which was pretty good. He also wrote Striptease, which was that movie with Demi Moore.
That's right. Yes, he did
from a while back.
That's right. Yep.
So he's written quite a few books. He's really funny. He's really, really funny. And he wrote some kids'
Yeah.
books too. One was
And I
called
think
Hoot, and I think they made a movie out of.
that sounds right. And he, I think this is only like his second or third book that turned into a TV or movie. Striptease is
I
one.
think it's the third.
And I can't remember what the other one was.
The other one was Hoot.
Oh, it was Hoot. Okay.
I think so, because I think Owen Wilson's in that one.
So this is like a big deal for him. And I think he's kind of, I just saw a little piece about the guy, and he's not like he's probably in his late 60s, 70s. So
yeah,
this is good for him. He's kind of getting a bit of the Apple money and Apple and TV thing here late in life. That's good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it had a Fletch-like quality to him too.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That he's kind of pulling off the world's got him down kind of thing. Instead of being a down and out writer, he's a down and out police detective, which I just, he does a really good job of playing the down and out guy. He does. Yeah.
It's funny you said that, because I thought Chevy could have done this character years ago in Chevy's youth. And John Hamm, who did a remake of Fletch a couple years ago, I think John Hamm could have done this character too. Yeah, I think the down and out thing is not everyone can do it. I think Bill Murray could have done it in his youth too. Anyway, so that is our first touch into this movie. We're going to move on to a second whiskey, I believe, right now. Just a reminder, this is What We Watch When We Drink, the live stream podcast with Travis Tidwell from Moet Hennessy, who's walking us through a Glenmorangie crazy tasting. Take it away, Travis.
Yeah, I kind of jumped the gun and I poured it a few seconds ago.
That's twice.
That's all right.
That's twice.
I know.
We'll have you back on.
You're excited. We like that. That's good.
I'm just following my passion, you know?
That's exactly.
So another kind of sneak peek, and anybody who knows Glenmorangie Original, or our 10-year-old expression. But we have the new and improved. Sorry, the glare is not great, but you can kind of see it there.
Yep. It's hard to see. It is hard to see. Maybe that's better.
Yeah.
It's a 12.
So we have Glenmorangie 12-year-old, but it's the original. So this is a brand new version of Glenmorangie Original.
So the 10 goes away?
The 10 is going away.
Okay.
And it's getting 2 years older.
Wow.
But it's the exact same recipe. It's the exact same casks.
It's just older.
And it's just getting 2 years older. And the reason this decision was made was because we've always kind of been going into a fight with one arm tied behind our back. Most of the single malts in the single malt category are 12 years old. You know, Glenfiddich, Balvenie, Macallan, Glenlivet, you know, you name them. They're all 12 years at the entry. But Dr. Bill, at a pivotal point in his life when he was deciding what he wanted to do for a living, he went out with some buddies and he went to a pub. And the very first,
there you go.
The very first single malt. The very first single malt he ever tasted was Glenmorangie Original. And he fell in love with it. Yeah, he fell in love with it. And he thought it was the perfect whiskey because it encompassed the balance of sweet, savory, fruity, citrusy, kind of all the classic styles you would imagine in a Scotch whiskey. So he quickly decided that he wanted to go to Heriot and Watt and get his degree in brewing and distilling, and then move on to get his PhD in biochemistry. So this has always been his baby. He's always protected the 10-year-old and kind of been very, very protective of it. And finally, after about 25 to 30 years, we've been able to convince him to just give a 12-year-old a shot and see what would happen if we made a Glenmorangie Original as a 12. And this is the very first commercial release of it, and it'll be the permanent going forward. So yeah, I like to say that this is the original, just about 20% more flavor, richness, kind of citrus, stone fruit flavors coming through. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit more mouthfeel, but it is still very much classic Glenmorangie.
And so this is out or not out yet?
It should be coming in the next couple of weeks. Some markets have it. Yeah, exactly the same thing. Yeah, but yeah, this is going to be the permanent entry into Glenmorangie going forward.
And this is 43%.
It smells fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep, 43%. And it is all ex-bourbon cask, and it's a marriage of about 50% first fill American white oak and 50% second fill American white oak. And the reason we use those ratios or those portions is because the first fill casks are going to give more vanilla, more citrus, more oak-driven characteristics from the lignin, from the cellulose of the structure of the wood. And then the second use of the barrel is going to be more of your distillery characteristics. And for us, Glenmorangie being the tallest stills in all of Scotland, it gives us light citrus, stone fruits, peaches, nectarines, and then orange peel, lemon peel kind of characteristics. And that's going to be more prominent with a second use barrel.
Wow, I love it. I don't remember when I had the 10 the last time, but this is just really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so good.
The 10 is the 10 has always been like well known and consistently won awards year after year. Yeah, it's like the gateway Scotch. It's a whiskey you introduce, somebody who's never tasted whiskey before. But now, being a 12-year-old, we kind of have an even playing field with all the rest of them, if that makes sense. Right. And the price point won't be changing much. It should be around about the same as what you would see traditional Glenmorangie 10-year-old. So.
Oh, that's good. Getting 2 more years and same price.
Very, very similar price, yeah.
Are you guys switching to 700s? These are all 750s, it looks like.
Yeah, it is a 750. You caught me off guard there.
Sorry.
For a select few of our items, they do come in 700s, but those are more direct imported from Scotland, and they're more smaller releases, if that makes sense. So stuff that like we have in the private client side of the business. So single casks and things of that nature.
Right.
Got it.
But at our core range, all the stuff that's readily distributed, you'll see at 750.
I love the nose on this. This is so. This is a classic Scotch. It's just perfect.
Yep.
Well, what did
citrus?
What our friends at Single Cast Nation always say, I think this is like their, when they start to find too many wild things, they kind of take this. They'll have the Glenmorangie 10 just to kind of, get them back on balance.
Reset.
Reset them.
Yeah.
Reset.
Yeah.
And we love the Single Cast Nation guys. Joshua Hatton.
That sounds like a Joshua comment.
And Jason. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think we both of them.
Was it Jason?
Josh and Jason. I think so. It might have been. Or maybe
they're both great guys.
Yes, they are.
And they're producing some amazing whiskeys as well. I have quite a few of them in my collection.
Guilty.
I think we're all guilty. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do some phenomenal stuff.
So talk about.
Yummy.
I assume you've been to Glenmorangie.
I have. Yeah, quite a few times. I've been very fortunate.
So we made a joke online today that this is our tall episode. Vince Vaughn is tall. You're tall. And the stills at Glenmorangie are tall.
The tallest stills in Scotland.
The tallest stills, right?
They are,
the tallest.
The tallest single pot or pot distillation stills. So there are some column stills that are taller, but for batch distillation and copper pot stills, we are the tallest.
Wow.
And that's just the neck of the still. That's from the boiling ball up. It doesn't include like down below,
Down below.
Base.
Is it like walking through the you're from Yosemite area? Is it like walking through the redwoods like Sequoia?
Yeah, a lot of distilleries call their stillhouse the cathedral, but Glenmorangie really is the cathedral. Yeah. We have 12 stills. They're lined up. They're all paired up, and they run really straight and narrow. So if you get the right angle, you can see all 6 of them on each side. And then on the window, looking down, we actually have stained glass that's in the emblem of Glenmorangie's signet. Yeah, at the end of the stillhouse. So it is quite a magical place. If you haven't been up to Tain, we are quite a trek to get up there, but it's definitely worth the trek. And there's some great other distilleries up in that area as well. Some of my personal favorites.
That sounds like a church I'll join.
Yeah,
totally. Does everything get aged, matured, warehoused there on premises or nearby?
So everything for Glenmorangie is aged up in the Highlands, yeah. So most of our warehouses are on the Dornoch Firth and very close to the distillery. But there are a few warehouses that are within a couple miles of the distillery. But more or less everything is in the general vicinity of Glenmorangie. Yeah. And then for Ardbeg, our sister distillery, 95% of the whiskeys are aged on Islay.
Right.
And the other 5% is more or less because of warehousing space.
But isn't Ardbeg building more warehouse space? I thought.
We are trying to.
Right.
Yes.
Space is
every distillery on
commodity.
Yeah, every distillery on Islay is trying to build warehousing. So
yeah, that's tough there. Very much so. Wow.
Yeah, it's hard when the whole island is owned by a couple major landowners.
Yeah.
And they see a purchase agreement for, a major company, and they're like, "Oh, we know exactly what you're going to do with that." So the price just went up.
How often is Bill on premises at either distillery? Is he there a lot, or does he have an office somewhere else?
He has an office in Edinburgh, and that's like the main office where he works out of. But there's also an office in Alba, and then he has he does go to both distilleries quite often to make sure everything's running properly, taste cask samples, etc. Yeah, but we have a really great team at both distilleries. They've been there for quite some time. So
we know Ardbeg for all the little interesting one-offs that come out, like Ardbeg Day, and there's more other creative things that come out. Does Glenmo do that as well? Does Bill have these kind of? I don't hear about them as much as
we're going to be tasting one.
That's right, we will be. But it seems like there's more coming from Ardbeg, though, right? There's more.
Well, I think that has to do with the Fesh Ila, the Isla Festival of music and malt. And then Ardbeg has the committee, which was kind of known for those quirky one-offs and creating those unique expressions. But Glenmorangie has definitely dabbled and created a lot of finishes, a lot of experiments. We do a barrel finish with a unique cask type every year, and then we do the new Tale of series, and we'll have another Glenmorangie coming in a few weeks or months that I can't really talk too much about, but it is another Tale of series that'll be coming in about October. Yeah.
Have a couple more drinks. I'm sure you'll probably tell us a little more.
He'll tell us all kind of stories then.
That's right.
Well, the label is already on TTV label approval, so you can find it that way. So,
it's the Tale of Cleveland. I heard all
Tale of Cleveland.
And you're not far off. It starts with a C.
Oh, let's not guess.
It's
you
Cleveland.
Can look it up on TT label approval, and then maybe I can speak to it.
Where's Skew when you need him?
Where's Skew when you need him? That's right.
Where's Skew when you need him?
That's right. Okay, let's get back to any thoughts on the any thoughts on that on this the 12? It's delicious.
What's to say? It's delicious.
Yeah, it's really good. It's so solid.
The one thing, it's classic Glenmorangie. It's everything you know and love about Glenmorangie original. It's just a little bit more depth, a little bit more complexity, and a little bit more richness. But it's great.
It's really good. Back to Bad Monkey. We always like to dig into the cast, and this is an interesting cast. You got Vince Vaughn, the most famous person in this whole list, right? Anyone have any thoughts on Vince Vaughn? Favorite prior movies or?
Wow. I mean, I like Vince from Swingers. I mean, first time I saw the guy, I thought he was just.
We did a Swingers episode. That's right.
That's right. Swingers and Maid and of course, Wedding Crashers.
School.
Yep.
It is just the booze dancing.
That's right. There we go. That's right. It's just the booze dancing.
Yes.
Right out of Wedding Crashers.
That's where it comes from. That's right.
So
Wedding Crashers is by far one of my favorite films. Also,
funny.
he was in another film that I don't know the name of, but he acts as like an Apple genius guy, where they're going through and they work at like Google.
Oh yeah. That's with him and Owen Wilson, right? Aren't they like interns?
Yeah, talking about Pappy the whole time, and they're talking about whiskey, and they're like they get that bottle of Pappy for like their boss or whatever.
What was that?
They were
I can't
interns at
remember the
Google,
name.
weren't they?
Yeah, they were interns at Google, and I thought it was like kind of a different take on his like typical character, but it was great. And I think he's quite funny in that film as well.
It was fun. Yeah, it was a fun one. I mean, him and Owen Wilson, they go back. So
Yeah.
Well, it's like there's certain guys that should be working together like forever, and those are two guys that should be working together forever, right? They just they just they're meant to be working together. He's interesting because he can play a heavy, he can play light comedy like this, he can play a little bit more drama-y, rom-com-y stuff. He's got the ability to kind of something like Curb, where he's really, that's serious comedy. He really has the ability to play a lot of different directions.
don't forget he was Norman Bates in the Psycho reboot.
Oh, I don't remember that. Really?
Yeah. It was him and Anne Heche. Anne Heche was a Janet Leigh character.
Wow.
And I think it was like Gus Van Sant, and it was a shot-for-shot recreation of Psycho, which is not to say it was good, but it was, shot by shot.
Was
and
he
was
good?
a serial killer. No, not really. And he was another movie years ago. I think it was called Clay Pigeons, where I think he's like a serial killer.
Well, there you
But
go.
it's like a comedy. It's him and I think Joaquin Phoenix, and it was a long time ago.
And he plays Santa's brother.
He plays Santa's brother. That's right. Yes. Do you guys know about this F is for Family?
Oh, that's a Bill Burr. It's funny because I say that all the time. I say F is for anytime somebody goes to see Family, I'm like, F is for Family.
It's animated. Okay. He's in that too.
Yeah. Okay. Huh. Yeah. It's a Bill Burr show.
So it looks like his TV history is basically one-off episodes until he gets to True Detective, F is for Family, and Curb. Really interesting. He only did 11 episodes of Curb. It feels like he was in a lot more than that. Huh. But only for 4 years. So maybe this is his, like I said, his new back to getting into TV a bit and away from movies. I think he's got TV all over him, I think. Yeah. Okay, so then we got where should I start? How about Natalie Martinez? So Natalie Martinez plays the coroner.
Yeah, me.
Rosa, right?
Yeah.
Rosa Campesino.
Rosa Campesino.
She's great. She's really funny.
She's great. She's been in Death Race. Let's see, a crime drama called Detroit 187, CSI New York, little list of all of that. She's full Cuban, and she's from Miami, so she knows the Florida thing. She's really good in this. I think she's like we'll see where her character goes in this, but I think she's really like, she could be like a little superstar here in the making. Mm-hmm. She's really funny. She's sexy. She's tough. They got that good rom-com kind of chemistry going on.
They play off each other really well.
Really well. Yeah.
Like the
I don't know where this is
second
going to go
in
with
the shower together.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. Yeah.
That was hysterical.
It's so funny. Yeah. And her sister is funny, who, like you said, kind of a Rosie Perez knockoff.
Yeah, poor man's Rosie Perez.
Oh, isn't that funny how I don't think I caught it the first time I watched it because I've seen this episode twice.
Well, as soon as I saw her, I was thinking of Rosie Perez and like Do the Right Thing.
Yeah.
Or in what was the other one? White Man Can't Jump, right? Isn't she?
White Man Can't Jump. That's what I was thinking. White Man Can't Jump.
Yeah. Yes. But when she meets her sister in the bar and she's wearing the top from the dead person.
I watched it.
You're disgusting.
It's so funny. Oh my God.
And someone, where did you get that? Oh, I got it at work.
Let's go.
And we didn't talk about this aside. I have to ask you, what do you think about this whole conversation about watches? You're a watch guy.
I know. It was kind of course, I'm looking up these
you
watches.
You must have loved that.
I couldn't find anything about these watches, so I don't know.
Are they not real?
I don't know. Who knows? I would think if you name drop, you gotta pay up, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that somebody's the proud sponsor of that episode.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it like a M.I. Moreau?
Yeah, I don't know. I would try to look it up. I gotta find it. I'll find it. I'll Reddit it. I'm sure somebody on Reddit posted something about it.
I thought you had dug deep into this already.
I'll say this much: whatever it is, it's not a very attractive watch.
It's weird.
I have to agree.
It's pretty ugly,
but it leaves a unique. It leaves a unique tan on you.
Well, that's true.
Yes, that's the key. That is the key. Okay, so we have Natalie Martinez, and what else do we have? Give me one second.
Don't forget his partner, John Ortiz.
I was getting to John Ortiz. We could do John Ortiz. Is that his name?
That's his real name. Yeah, it's the actor. Yeah,
he is not listed in what I'm looking at. That's really odd. Yeah, he's not listed in the list of credits that I see.
He is a solid working actor. He is in a lot of good stuff.
Oh my God, he is just he's been in so many great things. Oh, there he's listed here.
He is Rogelio.
He's from Bushwick.
Hey, question for you: when he's in the house, and and Vince Vaughn's talking to the other guy, are they like boyfriend? I mean, is that like his partner?
Yeah, I think that's unclear.
I was just curious. I don't know. Not that it matters. I'm just curious what the story was with them. It kind of
we don't know, but I think it's unclear. I thought the same thing. Unknown.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a second about the guy that put the whole thing together, Bill Lawrence.
Well, he did what?
Yeah, we got to talk about Bill Lawrence.
He's done a couple of shows.
Something called Ted Lasso, I think.
Cougar Town, Spin City, Ted Lasso. Yeah.
So
he's done a few.
He's a pro. Yeah, he's a pro. I saw an interview with him, and it was like apparently he was a huge fanboy of the writer, and he's all about dialogue. If you know those shows, dialogue is like a key thing, right? It's not just empty shots. It's all about what people are saying and how they're saying it. And he loves, words. And that's this writer is the same way. So it seemed like this was going to happen at some point. They'll put these guys together, and it's perfect because he really has a good way of telling a story and visually too. Cougar Town, Spin City, Ted Lasso, Shrinking. I didn't know he did Shrinking also on Apple.
And is the biggest thing that brought him to the forefront was Scrubs. And
Scrubs.
One of the characters in this is the guy from Scrubs, Zach Braff's in it.
That's right. That was so weird seeing him. Is that episode 2?
Yeah, in episode 2. Yeah.
Wait, who's this? Which character is this?
Oh no, Mike, you jumped ahead. That was episode 3, I think.
Oh, okay. All right, don't spoil.
So you didn't hear that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's episode 3. But yes, Scrubs was another dialogue-driven show too. Bill Lawrence is a big name. You get Bill Lawrence and Vince Vaughn, 2 really big names. And
it might be pretty good.
Yeah, it might be pretty good. Totally. And there was also
don't forget Michelle Monaghan.
I was going to mention Michelle. How can I miss Michelle Monaghan?
How could you forget Michelle Monaghan?
Her character is crazy. So she plays. What's her name?
She is.
Yes. Her character. I don't remember her name.
She's Bonnie. It says here Bonnie Witt, but she's not really Bonnie Witt.
But she's not really Bonnie Witt. So she plays Vince Vaughn's endlessly ex-girlfriend. Is that what? How did he describe that?
Something like that.
And he got in trouble for beating up, injuring her husband, and then he was taken off suspended from the police force.
He didn't beat him up, right? He didn't push.
He just drove him off a pier.
He drove the
pushed his golf cart into the water. Yeah. It happens.
And she and
another Tuesday.
She was having an affair with.
It's Florida. Anything could happen.
That's true. And what Vince Vaughn doesn't know, he doesn't really know anything about her. He's a cop. He has no idea that she has this whole other side of her, which I think, Mike, we can't talk about.
No, I think it's in the 3rd episode.
Yeah, we can't talk about it.
But her name's Bonnie Witt, like just pulling a name out of a hat, like Bon Witt Teller.
Yes.
My name's Bonnie Witt.
Bon Witt Teller.
Like a Fletch kind of thing. Where you just make up all sorts of...
Yes. My name is No Parking Zone, because that's a sign that's near you.
So Travis, is this your kind of show? Like, is this the kind of stuff you like, or?
Yeah. I would. I definitely do like these kind of crime thriller comedy shows. My wife and I we tend to watch a lot of these kind of shows together. So It definitely is right up. But I watched the first 2 episodes without her, so I'm gonna have to rewatch both of them.
Oh, that's too bad.
No, it's great. I know.
No, it's worth it. I think it's worth the set rewatch.
Yeah, because you miss things, and now you'll see like things that you didn't catch the first time watching. So
I totally missed things from the first watch.
So Bill Lawrence is married to Krista Miller, and
I love Krista Miller.
He tends to put her in every one of his projects.
He does, yes.
Not that she wouldn't be in those projects, but she just happens to be in them. And what's interesting in this one is we haven't seen her yet, but his daughter is in the show.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Huh. Oh, is this the Charlotte Lawrence?
Charlotte Lawrence is his daughter.
Oh, is that that's the girl, right? That's
the daughter of the stepdaughter
of the deceased.
Oh.
The daughter of the deceased, the stepdaughter of Eve.
Oh, okay. Interesting. That's Krista Miller. I love Krista Miller. Krista Miller. First time I ever saw Krista Miller was in. If you saw her, you know her. She was in the Drew Carey show.
Drew Carey show.
I didn't watch Drew
Carey
show.
She was great. She was Drew Carey. Ultimately, Drew Carey's girlfriend on the show. Is that right? I think. Yeah. She's a really good. And she was in Cougar
Scrub and Cougar Town and a bunch of other shows.
She's a really good comedic actress.
Speaking of casting, so the Eve stripling. The widow, right. The woman who's playing her, Meredith Hagner. She's pretty good, but there were a couple scenes where I was thinking, who could probably play this? Kaylee Cuoco.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
I can kind of see her in that.
Totally.
Especially after that. What was that? The flight attendant.
Flight attendant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can kind of see her in this role.
Ange, how do you like our boy Rob Delaney?
Delaney? Well, I haven't seen him do much yet.
No, but he's from our show Catastrophe.
That's right.
That's right. Yes.
Have you seen Catastrophe, Travis?
I have not. No.
Oh, it's on Prime.
Watch it on. It's Amazon Prime. It's actually what's her name from Star Wars?
Sharon Horgan.
Who? Oh, Sharon. Yeah. No, from Star Wars. What's her name? The mother.
Oh, that's right. Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher's last roles is that show. Yep.
Okay, I'll definitely have to watch it.
Yeah, it's a weird, dark humor.
Very dark. Very dark.
Sitcom. British, very British.
Really good, though.
British. Yep. Okay, we did a little bit of a cast talking. Let's go on to our next whiskey, which is, I believe, the 18-year-old, correct?
Yep.
Wow. Now we're going to up some age.
I have the old packaging, but you have the new and improved.
I have the new one, I guess, huh? There you go.
Yep. So, still the same whiskey, still the same juice, but the packaging got a little bit of an update to be in line with kind of the rest of the packaging that we're doing with Glenmorangie.
When did the packaging? Is it coming out, the new packaging, or it's out?
Yeah, it's coming out now. Yeah, okay. So basically, when the old packaging is depleted, then everything new will be the new packaging.
Because they've tweaked it over the years. The old packaging was really like old looking.
Yes, old school
with the barrel etchings and all that stuff on the
yes.
Yeah, and
this
now
is very modern looking. Yeah.
Very modern, very chic, bright colors. Which
the 18 is exactly, it hasn't changed, just the packaging. Nothing is different.
Correct. Yeah, the liquid's still the same. Still the same cask maturation. You're looking at about 70% of the whiskey fully matured in American white oak for the 18 years, and then the other 30% of the whiskey is about 15 years in American white oak with a 3-year finish in Oloroso sherry.
Okay.
So it's just a slight Oloroso sherry influence on a third of the whiskey, essentially. And the reason for this was we wanted to have some sherry influence, but if we finished the whole whiskey for 3 years in sherry, it would be quite a bit dominant. And to have those big dried fruit sherry notes where we just wanted a subtle influence to kind of evoke the classic Glenmorangie citrus stone fruits, but those fruits and citrus have kind of evolved and they're almost like stewed and caramelized. And you get some like baked figs and quite a floral kind of nose on this whiskey.
Yep.
I dare say it's a very pretty whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very elegant, beautiful whiskey that has just layers of complexity. And that's why we decided to rename it Infinita, because the complexity and the finish of this whiskey just keeps going and going. So
Did
it's
it have
kind
a
of
name
got
before?
Nope, it just it did not. Yeah, so we named it Infinita.
Boy, that's
or Infinito.
Boy, that's the 12, the 10's really good. The 12, we've upped our game a bit. The 18, boy, that's something. That's really nice.
Yeah.
And like you said, it kind of rounds out some of the flavors, but keeps all those bright citrus notes still alive. It didn't cherry bomb them, but it adds to, like you said, some of like a darker stone fruity kind of plums, maybe a little bit in there, or some prunes or
some figs for sure. One of the official tasting notes is for the aromatics is night blooming jasmine.
Oh,
so Dr. Bill writes all the tasting notes for all the whiskeys, and this is a very floral whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
so
very.
Tons of unique flowers and like jasmine and all kinds of great.
Hey, Mike, I saw you water in the garden. Did you have any of that in your backyard?
I did not have any night.
It's night. They'd be blooming now, wouldn't they?
I have some pumpkins, but I don't have much else.
So what's really funny? When I was growing up in Yosemite, we actually had jasmine that was night blooming jasmine in our garden, and it would only bloom at night. I know, as crazy as it sounds. Yeah.
No, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing, yeah. And it was so aromatic and so floral that it reminds me of that. Yeah. But a beautiful whiskey. This is probably one of the best values in our portfolio, hands down.
What's this going for these days?
You can find it still in some places for 120 to 150.
Okay.
Where if you consider like the competitive set with 18-year-old whiskeys, it's far above that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in this day and age, that's kind of normal these days.
And we always get a rule of thumbs, $10 a year.
That's right.
So if you can find it for $180, that's probably right on price, and they're coming in a lot less. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's a value.
And the important thing is you could actually get it, which is
important.
Yes, it's not allocated, right? You can actually get this at a store, right?
Permanent release. Yeah, that's one of the great things for Glenmorangie. We've been making and producing whiskey since 1843. And Glenmorangie has never really closed. We've never really had any hardships. The only time we closed down was during the World Wars, and that was because we would have been using the barley for food. But otherwise, Glenmorangie has had a pretty stellar run as far as producing and keeping consistent over the years.
Cool. That's just delicious.
Yeah,
delicious. It is.
Doesn't get much better than this. This is the whiskey I always bring and give as gifts. It's the one I bring to parties. This and the Quinta Ruban, the port cask that we make. Those are my two tried and true consistents that you can give to anybody and everybody.
So you're on every guest list everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that.
I can tell you that in our whiskey club, Travis is what's Travis bringing? What's Travis bringing? That's always the question.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really good.
I got some fun new samples coming this week that I'm very excited to pick up.
I was going to ask you about that. You told me a few things when we had lunch a few weeks ago. So when new things are available or coming and down the road, how early do you get those kinds of things to get ready for, what's coming down the pipe?
Sometimes it's a couple months, which is pretty cool. Like, I have an Ardbeg that's an ode to the original, like one of the first releases of Ardbeg that we released in 1997, and I have it about three months early, and I've been sneaking in showing it to a very, very select few, because internally we have embargo dates where we're not really allowed to talk about products and we're not allowed to show them and things like that. So, yeah. But a very, very select small group of people who I know won't post or show photos or anything, I'll bring them out, and you've seen some of those bottles over the years.
Yep, yeah, definitely. Yes. You've said exactly those things. So,
yeah.
How far in advance are things like Dr. Bill's thinking, years in advance, right? So, for instance, does he already know next year's Ardbeg Day? Does he know the next tale of?
He knows the next 3 or 4.
Okay, that's what I was curious
years
about.
Worth. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I've often heard him say, "We make whiskey for the future," we're not making whiskey for today. We're making it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, with whiskey, it takes 10, 15 years of maturation to become, a special release for us. So he's got 9, 10 experiments going at both distilleries, and he can kind of pick and pull when they're ready. So I already know all of next year's releases.
That makes sense, because you got to be prepped for it. The marketing department has to be ready for all that stuff, and has to trickle down to you guys at some point so that you're prepped for what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, and I guess I'll clarify. I know all the stuff that's coming for the U.S., but every once in a while they surprise us with things that come out at the distillery, and none of us know. So
right,
surprise.
Yeah, and the distillery doesn't have to go through TTB label approval, so they kind of like hide things. But as soon as it hits the U.S. market, it has to go through TTB label approval, and that's when kind of the secret is spoiled.
Interesting.
But we have started to make fake labels and fake products to throw people off.
Very, very clandestine here. That's funny.
It's typical Ardbeg,
Wait, say that again now. What did you say?
Clandestine.
Clandestine?
Clandestine. Clandestine? Clandestine?
Clandestine? I don't know.
Clandestine?
Mike, say it, Mike.
Potato.
No, whatever. I got you. Just curious.
Neutral.
That's really interesting. I could see. Well, we know from in the last 10 years, talking about skew earlier, the people that dig into the TTB to find out what's coming, and it's not such a bad idea to put a fake label out there just to get everyone looking.
Throw people off.
Totally. Yeah, makes sense.
Especially with social media nowadays, everything travels so fast.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, there was one a few years ago. There was a Vegemite cask finish. It's not real. It's not real.
Oh my god, that's great.
It's still circulating every now and again. I see it on Instagram, and I laugh every time I see it. It's an Ardbeg that's aged in Vegemite casks, which is awesome.
Well, what's funny is that, yes, it would never happen, but the true Ardbeg nerds, wow, that might really be real. That could happen. I can see that.
Well, if anybody was going to do it, it would be Ardbeg.
Yeah, the people who made the label for it, it's so spot on. It's brilliant. I'll show it next time we're in person.
That's so funny. Okay, back to TV for a sec. We were talking about, not from the show, but talking about...
Cast.
No, I was going to, not the cast. We're talking about Travis and what he watches. What else do you watch? Give me some specifics. What other kinds of shows have you watched recently?
So I will say, growing up in Yosemite, I didn't really have TV or television until I was probably about 18 years old, because we only had antenna with 1 or 2 channels, and it was not
rabbit ears.
So I haven't really been a huge TV person up until like my later years in life, but I've always been fond of cartoons. So I like Rick and Morty, Futurama. There's a new show called Solar Opposites, which I think is really clever and funny.
I heard about that.
Yeah. So I watch a lot of Hulu.
What's that on?
Hulu. It's on Hulu.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, but it's about like these aliens who invade Earth, and they have these little like weird creatures called bloopas, and then they create like a mini universe where they shrink the people in the show that they don't like. So there's three teenagers, and they'll take their shrink ray gun and shrink them and throw them in the what's called the wall, and it's like it's really funny, and it's kind of like adult humor. So I'm a big fan of like adult humor. Futurama, South Park.
And she knows in that. And in Solar Opposites, Thomas Middleditch is in it.
Thomas Middleditch.
From Silicon Valley.
From Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
He's really funny. Yeah, and Tiffany Haddish too.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Okay. What's it called again?
Well, it's called Solar Opposites. 5 seasons already.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Wow. It's pretty good. And then I watch a lot of like true crime, and my wife and I will watch those together. So. Okay. And I'm a huge like medieval fan, so Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of that.
So what do you
I also really like Star Wars.
you like House of Dragon?
I do. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
My wife and I are watching it. I'm having a tough time. It's a grind for me.
Yeah.
And I think one of the problems, there was an article I think in the LA Times about this recently, is that there's no humor. There's actually, there was always some humor in Game of Thrones somewhere, right? Whether it was I don't know,
Peter Dinklage,
whoever. There's zero. It's really hard to. It's all very serious.
Yeah.
We're the same way here at our house, so we like the same things. And Star Wars, of course. Did you watch the new Acolyte series?
I have not. No. It's also tough for me too because I'm on an airplane a lot. So a lot of my media that I consume is on Delta.com, which is when you fly pretty much every week, you've seen pretty much everything on it. So yeah,
that's so funny. That's tough.
I look forward to when they refresh and put the new shows on.
Do they do it monthly?
It's every couple of months.
Oh, that sucks, especially for you. That's too bad.
Gotta get an iPad. Download them.
Download them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
That's right. Since we're talking, guys, anything you've been watching recently that you want to mention?
Who, us?
Mike? Yeah.
Well, watching this, Bad Monkey. Also watching, I'm doing a rewatch of Industry. I'm rewatching the first 2 seasons so I can jump back into the third.
Did it start, the third one?
Yeah, it started 2 weeks ago, but that's okay. That's the beauty of the streaming, right? I can always catch up anytime.
But it's
my youngest just got to hit 16, and I told him when he was 16 he could watch The Boys.
Oh boy!
So we're rewatching The Boys.
Oh well, from the beginning.
Are you watching it with him?
I'm watching it with him.
Is the sound down? Are your eyes covered?
We're
in separate rooms.
Usually just the two of us are home at that point, and as soon as the mother, maybe we should stop watching now. Let's turn off the TV.
I can't.
Well, don't watch Industry with him. Whatever you do. Industry is pretty raunchy.
Well, The Boys is pretty raunchy. That's a lot going on.
And the Industry is
very violent.
Did you guys say? Has anyone here? I can't remember. Did you guys see the new Deadpool Wolverine thing?
I haven't.
Yeah, I saw it.
I didn't see it.
Saw it.
You saw it, and was it?
Saw it.
Was it funny?
It's Ryan Reynolds makes ridiculous movie with a ridiculous character. So if you can enjoy that, it's a great movie. And this one, now that they're kind of merging all of the Marvel book together, there are so many cameos of the original people.
Right.
Where, Jennifer Garner's in it. Wesley Snipes is in it. Channing Tatum tried to make a movie like 10, 12 years ago that never got made, but he's playing that character.
Mike.
This is fantastic.
We lost Mike for a second there. Looks like Wi-Fi problem.
No, he's been here.
Oh, he's back.
It's like he got all his friends to make a movie with him.
Yeah. I was very happy to hear that Jennifer Garner was in it. That's awesome. That's great. I love her. Yeah.
Speaking of newer films, you guys familiar with Borderlands? So I play video games, and I've played all 3 of Borderlands, and it looked like Borderlands was going to have a pretty good cast. You got Jack Black and a few others, but it seems like that movie just did not deliver.
Did you see it?
I haven't seen it, but just from all the reviews that I've read.
Great. I mean,
isn't Jamie Lee Curtis in it?
Yes.
And Kate Blanchett and a bunch of other. It's a really big cast.
What's his name? What's it? Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart, Jack Black.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it looked pretty good. Okay. I mean,
there's an interesting trend of taking games and making them into shows, and I think it can be hit and miss. I mean, you run. It's a tough concept of taking a total game like Monopoly and making a movie out of it or whatever. It's you have to be pretty creative to make it into something without going so far away from the original concept.
Well, The Last of Us worked really well.
The Last of Us worked really well. Yes.
Yeah. And I've played all the Borderlands games, and they were all like hilarious. Like the scripts and inside the game, it's really comedy driven and quite funny. But I feel like they just kind of missed the mark. And another one like Fallout. I don't know if you've seen Fallout.
No, I did. I loved it.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Who's the lead guy? Is it Walton Goggins?
Yes. Yep.
He's good. He's a lot of fun.
He is good. He's really good. I thought the cast was really good, and I didn't know anything about it. My son plays the games, and I didn't know anything about it, and I don't think I needed to know anything about it. I thought it just held up really well as a series. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy, like the statistic for like Fallout after the TV series came out, their sales of the games were up like 10,000%.
Oh my God. I can imagine that. I mean, especially if it's good. And it gets some buzz and gets some. Yeah,
and the games are great as well. Like the games are phenomenal. So it's really interesting to see. Yeah, because Xbox, I think PS4. It's on all of them: PC, Xbox, PS. Because I think there's been a lot of great video games that have translated into film and TV series. But this one just seemed to fall flat. But.
I heard
interesting. I need to see it. Yeah, I need to see
it. Shall we move on to our next whiskey?
Yeah.
We're going to move to the others to the land of the rising sun.
I'm excited about this one. I'm very excited.
So Tale of Tokyo. So this is one of our special editions or experiments. So every year, Dr. Bill, he's a true scientist, right? Like he's got his PhD in biochemistry, undergrad in brewing and distilling. So he's always trying to see what would happen, the next big thing. What would happen? This is a great example for Spios or for the new triple cask. What would happen if the bourbon industry changed their laws where we were no longer able to source used barrels from Kentucky and they could reuse their barrels? The Scotch whiskey industry would be decimated. We would have to come up with an alternative barrel source. And that's why we do experiments with fully matured whiskeys in rye casks or, virgin American oak, virgin French oak to see what would happen, see if we could fall back on that. This one, there's a huge craze with Japanese whiskeys. There's a huge craze with Mizunara oak, which, for most of the industry, it's not even true Mizunara oak. It's Mizunara oak chips that are thrown into a barrel to add a little bit of flavor because Mizunara oak is very, very difficult to get your hands on. The only reason we were able to get some barrels or cooper some barrels ourselves is because Dr. Bill has been friends with Japanese distillers for about 25 years. And he's been trying to get these staves in these barrels for 25 years. And we were finally able to get them. Because you're not legally allowed to cut down a Mizunara oak tree. It has to naturally fall. And then you can cooper it. It's also a very, very spongy wood that's prone to leakage. So it's not a great barrel to make, or it's not a great wood to make a barrel of. And then also, the trees don't grow very straight. So they're quite curvaceous. They're very, very difficult to cooper into staves and make a barrel. So we were finally able to get our hands on about 20 Mizunara oak casks that we coopered ourselves, heavily toasted them, and lightly charred them. And we filled a Glenmorangie spirit that was about 8 years old from ex-bourbon casks into the Mizunara oak to finish it for about 5 years. And there's also some Glenmorangie that's in Oloroso sherry casks to kind of bridge the gap between the American white oak and the Japanese oak, to kind of create that story where they come together in the middle. But it's quite an interesting one. We lost about 5 barrels due to leakage alone because they actually leaked completely out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the barrels were about $5,000 a piece to cooper. So very, very expensive casks to make. So we didn't make a ton of it. But I think, when you taste it, you'll notice that it's dramatically different than your traditional, Glenmorangie.
So the whole barrel's Mizunara, the heads and the tops, both ends, the whole bit. Or do
so
they do staves inside?
I don't know about the heads and the heads of the barrel, but I know the full staves, the 25 staves that would go throughout and create the barrel. I know those are true Mizunara oak.
Okay.
So it is a proper Mizunara oak barrel,
Right.
but I don't know the specifics on the heads. But normally the heads of the barrels are not heated or treated. They're just plain. They don't treat it with heat. So those don't really influence flavor. But we have experimented with some of that stuff for some of our other whiskeys, where we cut grooves into the heads of the barrels and then we toast them. But that's a whole nother episode when we do Ardbeg in the future. So
that has got some. That's got some vapors on it.
How many bottles How many bottles of this are there?
That's a hard one to say. We didn't do as much as we normally do, so this was a smaller release. I would say it's in the thousands, but it's not much more than that.
Wow!
And that's for the entire U.S.
Do we know
how?
Go ahead. The main thing is Dr. Bill loves Japan. It's his favorite place to travel to. He's a huge, he loves the culture. He loves the craftsmanship, always trying to perfect things. Because I would say Dr. Bill is very much a Westerner's mindset as well, and not so traditional, where he's always trying to innovate and improve and make better and better, which is very much a Japanese mindset as well when it comes to making whiskey.
This is really good. This is really
there's an odd note on the nose. What?
Yeah.
What is? It's like a soapy kind of. I don't know what that is.
Like a sandalwood, maybe, or something.
So it's a sandalwood, like a cedar, like a almost like a lacquer.
Yeah.
And that's a traditional Mizunara. So a true Mizunara oak cask will give very big oaky and wood-like flavors. Sandalwood, incense, resin. Those are kind of common characteristics that you would find in Mizunara oak.
That's nice.
And there's not a ton of them. Like, I don't know if you're familiar, but the Yamazaki that's fully matured in Mizunara oak, that's an 18-year-old, that bottle's going for like $10,000 now because there's just not very much Mizunara oak out there.
Yeah, there's very few distilleries. I remember there was this one in Seattle called Bainbridge Island Distillery. It's a little tiny little place, and somehow they got it. I did, and somehow they had access to a cask. This is like 10 years ago, but you don't. Aside from Japanese companies, you really don't see it. It's so rare.
Didn't you go when you went to Jubilee in Seattle?
I think it was. Yeah, probably was.
Okay.
I would say even when you see Japanese oak or Mizunara, be wary because there's just not a ton of it. And if you see it for like a really cheap price, then chances are it's not
the real
proper
stuff.
cask.
Yeah. So this is the same series that The Forest came from, correct?
Correct.
Last year. That was a beautiful whiskey too.
Yeah, that's one we could get in trouble for. But it's a great one.
What's that story?
Because we did some techniques that would fall into the gray area of the Scotch Whisky Association.
Oh, got it.
But, basically it comes back to whatever would have been traditional. And Dr. Bill was able to prove that, the local farmers in the Highlands of Scotland would have taken their peat and whatever would have been in that peat, they would have burned and used. So that's how we were able to take some local herbs and botanicals that are found, local combustibles that are found around the distillery. And we were able to smoke and peat Glenmorangie with those combustibles in the peat. And that would have flavored and contributed to Tale of Forest.
Interesting. So you brought up an interesting topic. So how, because I saw, was it on the original? The original?
Hmm?
No, not the original. Which one was this? The triple cask. Like, if I can read this right, maybe it's too small. It says it says pear or peat, honeysuckle, and candied orange. Maybe it says pear.
Pear.
It does say pear. So how much, if any, peated malt is in any Glenmorangie? If any,
typically zero.
Zero.
Typically zero. Yeah. We have done a few experiments The very first one was a whiskey called Finalta, and that was a lightly peated Glenmorangie that dates back to a recipe that we found in the log books of about 180 years ago. And then Tail of Forest, which was lightly peated as well. And then we have a global travel retail whiskey that's called Tribute, which is a 16-year-old that's lightly peated as well.
Oh, interesting.
And it's great. If you get the chance to travel abroad, I would highly recommend picking up the Tribute 16-year-old.
Tribute, okay.
Yeah.
This is just really cool.
That's good. That's really delicious.
Yeah. So every year we do a Tale of series. We started out with Tale of Cake, then we did a Tale of Winter, and then we did Tale of Forest, Tale of Tokyo, and then think back to one of your favorite childhood desserts that melts in the sun, and it's served on a cone. And that would be the next Tale of series.
Falafel?
Falafel?
Tale of falafel? Oh, that's weird.
What are you putting on your cone?
Tale of cottage cheese?
So yeah, think of what kind of vanilla, caramel, citrus flavors that you can achieve by heavily charring an American white oak cask.
Wow.
Stop it.
Yum, yum.
That sounds good.
Well, that's really.
That's delicious. That's really, they're all good.
They are, and that this is really unique. I think partly because of that that note that you're talking about, Mike, that lacquer or whatever that is. It really is very unique to these four whiskeys we've had so far.
And I will say, I do want to mention there is some sherry cask Glenmorangie in this because it does create the bridge between the two styles. Because if it wasn't there, it would be very extreme. You would have the vanilla citrus bourbon casks, and then you would have the oak sandalwood lacquer incense. So that sherry is meant as a bridge to combine them. Because with Glenmorangie, we're all about creating balance and flavor.
Yeah.
And I would say, I hope through all the whiskeys you've tasted so far, Glenmorangie has been quite balanced, but has a richness and a lot of flavor going on. But it's very, very approachable. So I would say anybody who's kind of never tasted whiskey before, Glenmorangie is a great place to jump in.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, the nose had me a little worried because the nose wasn't as balanced to me, but the flavors were perfect.
I think you could definitely say Glenmorangie is so approachable, right? Yeah. If you're trying to bring a whiskey to somebody who's not a whiskey drinker or drinks Bushells or Jameson or Jack or something, any of these are a great step into the category. I think they are just really approachable.
Yeah, we always call it the 10 was table whiskey. Now the 12 will be table whiskey.
Right.
You put it out there for somebody that I don't know if I like whiskey. Try this. You'll like it.
And they're good. And they're good session whiskeys, right? You can sit down with a bottle and easily drink through a lot of it really well.
Yeah. I can't drink multiple Ardbegs at one sitting, but I could drink,
correct.
Quite a few of these Glenmorangies.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Wonderful. Really good. Thank you. We'll come back to our movie. One last shot at that. Bad Monkey, Apple TV Plus, first 2 episodes.
Let's get to the other side of the show when they leave Florida and the whole cast that takes place in the Bahamas.
So that's a really interesting aspect because I think the books are similar to this, where there's multiple environments going on, and there's this whole side story, which probably is not a side story, as we know later on.
As you said, you think you're watching 2 stories, but it's one story.
Right. There's a development deal going on, some little island where some sort of resort is going to be built, correct? And there's a connection between that and this person's arm that was found in the water in the beginning of the show. Jump in, Mike.
Well, I just love the fact that you basically have the Bahamian version of Vince Vaughn, kind of like the ne'er-do-well guy. He spends his day surf fishing and hanging out at the bar, and he doesn't really have a job, but he does odd jobs.
Yes.
He's kind of getting through life,
Fishes. He fishes,
and everybody knows him, and everybody loves him, kind of like a Vince Vaughn character.
And he has a monkey.
And now he has his bit of drama.
Yes.
Because his house has been sold to make way for the resort. And it wasn't his house. He was living in his father's house because he's kind of a bum and he never moved out. So,
and his sister is sold the house.
Going on, and there's the voodoo aspect of it, which in the Bahamas is Obadi, or however you say that. They're similar, African curses and things going on, and it's him and his friends, and it's just a whole different aspect of it. As you can fly, was it 90 minutes? It's just a 90-minute flight. You're back and forth. If
you weren't really paying attention, you would think they're telling two separate stories, kind of like the narrator says. But obviously there's a connection to it all, and that's a whole separate cast of people, and they're all really interesting in their own right. They're all really funny. There's a lot of humor going on there. You got a monkey that's kind of crazy. It's the shaman voodoo princess who's funny as well. Who knows what's going on with that whole thing, and we'll find out. But yeah, I like that too.
And the grandmother on there,
she's great.
She played one of the deputy marshals in The Fugitive.
Oh,
and she was on the show Lost.
She's on Lost?
She's got a long storied career.
Oh, she was in Lost. That's
she played
right.
Rose on Lost.
Yeah. My God. That's so
you
funny.
see her and you go, boy, I know her from something. What do I know her from? And you got to Google it and see where you know her from.
That's so funny. Yes.
I love the backstory on the monkey too. How he acquired the monkey.
Yeah.
It's just so great.
Yes.
We're out here filming, Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's Johnny Depp's monkey.
Just it's an extra one that they left it behind. Yes.
Or is it? Because he's kind of a bad monkey.
That's right.
I'm actually I'm really curious to see what develops with this part of the story, because I think the Dragon Queen, the shaman or the priestess, I think she's going to play like a pivotal point in the story, and I'm really excited to see what happens. And then there's the big enforcer guy, the bee or whatever.
Egg.
Egg. Sorry, egg.
Yeah, egg.
Yeah. And I'm really curious to see what happens with them, because you can see these mini micro plots happening between them and the resort being bought, and his favorite bar that he goes to being taken over. And so I there's so many layers to this show, and I love it so far. It's great.
I like this little side story of Vince Vaughn's The House Next Door, and the realtor who's trying to sell this house.
Awesome.
It is so good. Great. There's a house next door to his which is ugly, and I saw an interview with him, and he said that they basically built that. I think the house he lives in is actually the house that's on that beach, but the house next door, that yellow house, they built for the show, and they made it as ugly and as ostentatious as possible. And the realtor, a local realtor, is trying to sell it, except Vince Vaughn doesn't want a neighbor and doesn't like that big yellow house, so he does everything in his power to thwart any potential sale going on by.
The thing with the raccoons, that just reminded me of Succession.
Yes.
In Succession season 2, when they go open the house in, where was it, in Long Island?
Yes.
In the Hamptons. Yeah. And he's got the house. Oh, it smells like whatever it was.
Dead raccoons or whatever, yeah.
Oh, it was great.
And
so
bees
good. And
inside.
The bees. The bees was fantastic.
Yes.
I actually like the way they shot that too. That was really cool. With the beekeeper coming in and that turquoise blue behind them.
Yes,
that was just really, really, and then he just lights up a joint,
and you don't know what's going on, right? You don't know that's what's happening. It could have been. Are these guys like going to be making meth? What's going on here? Who are these guys with the masks on? Right? Is it a drug thing? No, it's beekeepers. It's bee guys.
It was great. It was great. Him
Yes.
haggling,
And
just going back and forth haggling the price.
The haggling on everything. Yeah.
But the guy puts the bees in, and then he says, "Now you let them know when they want the bees gone. They got to call me."
That's right.
Oh yeah, I'll make sure they call you.
But
when I call you, don't come right away.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name?
So good.
What's the realtor's name? Something Snook.
Oh, I have it right in front of me. Hold on a second. Oh, it's Evan Shook.
Oh, Evan Shook. Yeah.
Is that Live guy? He looks really familiar.
I don't know. His name's Alex Moffat.
Yeah, I don't know.
He looks familiar.
No
Yeah.
idea.
He
plays the great, like, overly dressed for a
sleazy real estate guy
trying to sell a house.
Yeah. It's so good. And you can see this is going to be ongoing. At some point, he'll figure out that it's Vince Vaughn, of course, and it won't matter.
Well, you know what? He comes off as like, the guy who comes out, he hears us say, great get rich quick scheme. It's like, oh, I'm going to go into spec real estate. If it was a different show, it could have been crypto.
Sure.
It could have been anything.
Right.
This just happens to be, beachfront property in the Keys.
And it's Florida. This is a Florida story. It's very, you can't do exactly this story anywhere else. There's so many elements of Florida in this story.
Right.
From even him being the demoted to restaurant cop and finding everything horrible about this restaurant the first place he goes to, and not one patron cares. They just keep eating. This is like the essence of Florida. Sorry to all our Florida folks, but that's what it's. This is Florida, and there's one part that is just so unrealistic is when he's riding his bike into Key West, and he goes by Sloopy's. There's no one on the street. There's absolutely zero people on the street. That would never happen. It is like it's like New Orleans. There's always people on the streets.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's TV. But very funny, very funny. Closing thoughts on the show itself. I think we're all in agreement. We like it a lot.
It's fun. It's a vibe. It's got atmosphere. It's just, I don't even care about the plot. The plot means nothing to me. It's about the characters.
It probably gets, it'll probably get a little convoluted after a while, but it doesn't matter.
Did you ever watch Justified?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, at some point the plot doesn't matter. It's just about the characters. It's about the dynamics.
Yeah. And the acting.
Yeah,
and how to deliver.
Who cares about the plot? I don't care about the plot. Just give me good characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that with this guy's books too, right? It's about developing these characters and the way they speak and the way they move and the setting around them, which this is, like, as I said earlier, the setting is a character, right? You're on the water, you got the sun, you got the beach, you got the rainforests. It's just, that's a whole cast right there.
I think The Ringer kind of summed it up really nicely. They said this is like the summer beach read.
It is.
That really good, funny thriller. Like, it's an Elmore Leonard novel. If you read an Elmore Leonard novel, it's just fun. It's just fun from start to finish.
And so we're in end of August here, right? Going into September. This is the dying days of summer. So you got this light, fun thing. And all of a sudden, Apple's going to be flipping the switch here. Slow Horses is coming, right? All of a sudden, things get much darker on their menu. It goes right with the weather and the calendar. Yeah. So this is the fun stuff because it's nice and sunny and hot out. All right. Are we ready for the big boy? The very special big boy?
The big finish?
Bring us home.
Bring it home. All right. So this one you'll notice right off the get-go is very different. So this is, most people know Glenmorangie Signet.
Yep.
If they've never tasted it, they at least have seen it, and they're like, I've always wanted to try that. But then as soon as you try it, you know immediately that you can never go back. Because it's so different than everything else you've probably ever tasted. It's a whiskey that not too many people make in Scotland, let alone the United States, or anywhere in the world for that matter. But we're taking what is called heavily roasted chocolate malt, or essentially standard barley that we roast into a category of malt, or chocolate malt, or barley that we heavily caramelize, and it produces these roasty, toasty, coffee, espresso, kind of burnt sugar characteristics. And then we distill it and make whiskey from it for quite a long period of time. Now, I'm not allowed to disclose the ages, but there are some pretty old whiskeys in here. Quite old whiskeys. And let's just say the youngest whiskey in here is pretty close to the oldest whiskey we tasted on the age statement range.
Hello.
So, see, now you said all those things, and it's all coming out. I'm getting like the top of a creme brulee. I'm getting the coffee note.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the coffee
all
note.
that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The nose is almost like a chocolate covered cherry.
Uh-huh. I get a little bit of like a dusty characteristic on the nose. So like think of when you wipe off like a book and there's a little bit of layer of like dust, but then it's followed by like cocoa powder and espresso. But then
I like
on the
that you
taste,
assume we can read. I like that. That's nice.
No one ever
Thank
does. So
Or that we dust.
well,
I mean,
we do know.
oh, I dust.
theory,
I
Or
would just
that
do
we've
it.
ever dusted. That's what I mean. Like, when you see dust, I don't touch it.
Yep.
but then there's a burst of like explosion of flavor. You get vanilla, you get burnt citrus, you get rich milk chocolate, coffee, a bitter chocolate.
Leather.
So it's such a unique whiskey.
So
yeah,
can you talk about the casks that are involved?
yeah. So most of the whiskey is matured in, well, not really most of it, but some of the whiskey is matured in American white oak, and then some of it is finished in virgin American white oak for about 5 years. Some of the whiskey is fully matured in Oloroso sherry casks for a very, very, very long period of time. And then the heart of the whiskey is that chocolate malt. So the whiskey that's made solely from the heavily roasted chocolate malt, which gives it that big, robust flavors that you're tasting right off the get-go. And then there's a few other wine casks that are in here too, like red wine casks and things like that. But predominantly, it's about the flavor. And that's why we don't put an age statement on it. It is a non-age statement whiskey, but as you can tell by tasting it, it doesn't taste young at all. There's quite a bit of whiskeys, yeah.
And a great finish.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, the finish is really beautiful.
If you like cigars,
Mike does.
I had two earlier.
So this is a great whiskey for that. You might want to take some of your leftovers.
I'll be taking this to the shore with me.
Yep. But it also works really well with like chocolate or like a flourless chocolate cake, things of that nature. But it really has a cool story. So the signet that you see on the label here, we actually own about 200 acres of land where we grow Cadwell estate barley, which is where the Glenmorangie house is. But about 25 years ago, we found large pieces of granite coming up out of the ground. So we did a full excavation of the site, what is now known as the Chapel by the Sea. And the Chapel by the Sea, we found what is now known as the Hilton of Cadwell. And the Hilton of Cadwell is like a historic stone that dates back to the 8th century. And on that bottom portion of the stone is the actual engravings of the signet. So you can find that on the bottom portion of the stone, yeah. So we commissioned a traditional stonemason who's also an artist to recreate that stone. And he carved it with hammer and chisel by hand, no power tools whatsoever. And it took him about 5.5 years to do it. Yeah, his name's Barry Grove, and he takes amazing photography. He also creates some unique sculptures. But the point of it is this image on the bottom portion of the stone was carved by the Pictish people or the Pictish tribe that dates back to the 8th century. And they believe the stone was kind of depicting the spread of religion through Eastern Europe and all the seasons and cycles of the calendar.
Oh, wow.
So the original stone is in the Modern Museum of History in Edinburgh, but that's when we found this stone, we decided to adopt that as the Glenmorangie emblem and signet. And that's why you see it embraced on here.
That's very cool. That's a good story.
Yeah, so you can Google the Hilton of Cadwell or the Cadwell stone, and there's a bunch of images and things that'll come up about it. It's pretty cool. But yeah, this is kind of a whiskey honoring that and kind of a historic place for us.
And it's an ongoing release, correct?
It is, yeah. It's a permanent release. And you may see a new reserve version of this in travel retail that is finished for a year in PX Sherry.
Wow.
So
what's
the rich chocolatey notes? Think of like rich chocolately covered raisins.
Yep.
Oh, raisinettes. Love a raisinette.
So
I could bring this to the movie. This is my movie candy.
There you go.
So this is going to be Signet Reserve.
What's the Signet go for these days? Is it like 300, 275, 300?
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay.
Depending on how long they've had it in stock, you can find it for $220.
Okay.
Some stores you can find it up to $300. But the Signet Reserve will be global travel retail, and that'll be in like the $455 range.
So I had a little sip with this Bouchard milk chocolate. Oh, nice. That was nice. Probably better with a dark chocolate.
It is, yeah. Dark chocolate.
Better with a dark chocolate. That's all I had. So you take what you
and
can.
with like a medium smoke, Mike. If you like cigars, this would be like a medium style smoke. This would be great with.
And it looks like
I just googled the stone, and it on one side it deals with death, judgment, heaven, and hell.
It's like our show,
but
it's right on our alley. Come on.
But on the flip side of the stone, it's got the largest Kildalton cross, and then it also has who they believe is David and the Goliath in the center of the stone.
Oh, cool!
So it's somebody wrestling a really big lion.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. This is
This was just buried. It
was buried.
And you unearthed it just farming? Is that what happened? Right?
Yeah, so we started noticing these large pieces of granite coming up out of the ground. And, it's crazy because it took 5 years to recreate the stone and to do the full excavation, but it was a church. So every time we unearthed more and more dirt, we found some skeletons and stuff, unfortunately, and we had to stop everything because we had to make sure it wasn't, anything from modern times. But it's crazy. It's only about 15-minute walk from the Glenmorangie house, which we operate as a bed and breakfast or a hotel with 12 bedrooms. And you walk down the coastline and you walk along the Dornick Firth, and then you run into the Cadwell Stone. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the best walks you can do in the morning or during sunset.
Now, I'm fascinated by the stone. It's the walk part that's a bit off-putting for me. Could I get like a ride down to it?
You can.
It sounds far. It sounds like work.
We do have a little shuttle that'll take you down to the stone, and
thank God! Oh, that's good.
And we will sometimes send out the guy who carved the recreation, Barry Grove, and he'll give a whole lesson on the stone and kind of speak to it in depth. It's pretty amazing.
Fascinating. Yeah, fascinating.
And the whiskey doesn't suck.
No,
the whiskey does not.
No.
I would never use that word with Glenmorangie.
No.
None of them.
If you know me, that's very much my demeanor.
No, they're all, geez.
So I noticed that this is 46%.
Correct. So is the Tokyo.
The Tokyo. So all these are 46 and below.
Correct.
Cast strength, 50% above. Any Glenmos that do that?
We have, yeah. So we've done Astar, which was from our slow growth white oak trees in the Ozark Mountains that were air season for 36 months. So that's basically like a cast strength Glenmorangie. We also just released a 25-year-old in Global Travel Retail Terminal 2 in Heathrow that is cast strength at about 55%. It's a finish for the last 15 years in Pomard red wine casks.
Wow.
And I'm really trying to get my hands on that one because it's exceptional and I've tasted it and it's one of the best whiskeys I've had in a long, long time. The only problem is it's Terminal 2 in Heathrow.
Yeah, we never go there.
But yeah, we've done cask strengths here and there. A lot of our single casks that we release at the distillery and some of our private client offering bottles that we do are cask strength as well. So next time we get together, Aaron, I'll remind me and I'll bring one up because we have some pretty awesome stuff. Glenmorangie, there's some casks and some releases from Glenmorangie that are absolute sleepers. You could taste them against some of the best whiskeys in the world and they would show very, very well.
Really solid. I mean, the whole lineup is solid, right? We said it's very approachable, and then you get into these unique things like the Tokyo and the Signet, and it's just, oh my God, we're getting into some really stratospheric kind of cool, amazing stuff. Really delicious. So good.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. This is really
this was
wow.
Spectacular.
Just
spectacular. Final thoughts on the whiskeys, boys? Final thoughts on the show? On
delicious.
Vaughn? Delicious?
This
Vaughn is delicious.
I worked with a guy who is from Kentucky, And he said, as a young auditor, he went out and was paired with an old auditor. So he brought him a bottle of bourbon and said, this will be great. And his old auditor partner had a bottle of the 10. And he said, after that trip, I only drink Glenmorangie unless people notice. And then in Kentucky, I have to drink bourbon. But he said, only that's just, and he doesn't go up. He doesn't get the other ones. He said, just the base 10 is just so good. Yep. And to try these other ones, oh my God, these are just fantastic. They really are.
So I'm curious to see what your friend thinks of the Glenmorangie.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him and say, the 10's going away. Let me know what you think of the 12.
Well, maybe we can communicate and I can give you a bottle of 12.
You think of the 12? Yeah.
Give it to him. That way it's a lesson of the blow,
Yeah, see what he said. Yeah.
We've talked about
it's thanks again.
We've talked about this, Travis, here on the show, and you traveling so much. When you're traveling in airports all over, wherever you are, bars around the world, not just standard bars, not like whiskey bars. You see the kind of the same things over and over and over again. And there's a fair amount of Glens that I will not touch. If I see this on the shelf, this is a go-to for me. If I'm there's no Ardbeg and there's no peated stuff. This is the Glen, or actually there's another Glen that I go to, Glenmurray. But the other ones I don't have no desire to. That's not my thing. It's not my jam usually. But it's great to see it occasionally. I wish more airplanes had it on their menu, and more airplane bars had it on the menu.
Yeah. We used to be in LAX quite a bit, and then I don't know, something happened. But there are a few airlines that carry Glenfarclas.
Oh,
and I think that's a pretty solid.
Really? That's pretty solid too. Yeah, I've not seen that. That's interesting.
Yeah, Air France has it. Delta has it on their international flights.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I've had a few of those on a couple of my international flights.
I fly American mostly, and it's always the Glens I don't want on American. So that's the problem.
Isn't that a Vince Vaughn quote? Any Glen will do.
Any Glen will do. Well, that's not.
Oh, it was actually what's his name?
Or was that Favreau?
Favreau. Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, any Glen.
But that's not true.
It's not true for me, for sure. Not for sure.
Yeah. Kind of a fun. Since you mentioned it, we used to own Glenmurray, and we regret selling it. Many. Yeah. So if you remember the Ardbeg whiskey called Serendipity, that was Ardbeg vatted with Glenmorangie by accident, and it was an accident. Yeah, that was one of our regrets.
And they're some French company now, right?
I'm not sure actually.
Yeah, some French company owns them. Well, this was spectacular. Travis, thank you for coming on. We wanted to do this for a while. I'm glad we finally got together. And thank you for this wonderful walk through Glenmorangie. This has just been, I don't know. What do you think, boys? Just crazy great, right?
Big thumbs up. Big thumbs up.
up.
Great show, great whiskey, great guest. What do you need?
I got to quote our guest. This did not suck.
This is not suck. and maybe we can entice Travis to come back, sometime down the road and do an Ardbeg kind of thing.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully, when I have some
the Tale of Cleveland, you can bring
Tale of Cleveland. Tale of Cleveland coming up. Yes, that's right. That's coming next year. And this has just been a really fun show. We've talked Glenmorangie. We've talked about the whole range of whiskey, and we've talked about this new Vince Vaughn show on Apple Plus, which I think we all give a thumbs up to. So jump on that one. Keep watching. I assume it's weekly. We didn't talk about this earlier. I assume it's a weekly.
Yeah, there's 10 episodes.
It seems like it drops weekly. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that. I was just talking about this. What I hate about all these weekly drop things, it's not like the old days when you knew that Seinfeld was on Thursday nights at 9.
Right.
Was it Thursday night? Or Friends or whatever, right? I don't know when any of these things. I don't know when these things show up. I mean, I happen to be watching the second episode again last night of this, and then if it comes to the end, it said the third one's available. Oh, I would have never known that. It's just that's annoying as hell. Just release them all, damn it.
Why don't you could probably set a notification on your phone.
They do it for subscriptions.
Wednesday midnight.
They do it so you keep your subscription.
Oh, you guys are so techie, so techie. This has been What We Watch When We Drink, the live stream. This will be a podcast coming up probably next week that you can download and listen to at your own leisure. Again, you can send us in cards and letters and comments to boozedancing.com. And you can also check out all the great reviews that Mike and Angelo do at the Murder Table. And I'm guessing you guys might do a little deep dive on some of these, maybe?
I think we will.
Yeah.
I think we will.
A little deeper dive on these guys.
I can feel it. I'm feeling it.
Yeah. So those are coming up soon, too. And we've got another great episode coming up. We have a couple guests coming up that are going to be fun, too. So stay tuned. Stay on the social medias. That's where all you can find out about everything about boozedancing.com. Travis, thank you again. Great to see you.
Stick around
for all this.
Stick around.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to run some credits. And cheers to everybody.
If you enjoy this show, please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Audible, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can also find us on boozedancing.com. And if you have any questions, comments, show or drink suggestions, email us at boozedancing@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.